you mentioned, I think they should be broadcast to the school systems so they have a real understanding about what's happening or what has happened.
Well, I'm glad you liked having Bill on. I'd like to have him back again, maybe even regularly. I have to talk to Gary about that. But it went by too fast. Like I said, he thought he was going to be on the whole hour, and I had a couple other topics I wanted to share, one of them being the Cohen tapes. So you got anything else, Gary? And it's good to hear from you.
Well, I think the Supreme Court in Michigan made a mistake
Yes.
when they decided that you can't bring a gun to the school. I think these kids are sitting ducks because it's a gun-free zone or a protection-free zone, and they need to be able to protect themselves via anybody who can carry. I know these are younger kids, and they don't have the legal right to carry right now.
Well,
but
I
we
think
should
that
protect those kids any way we can.
yes, and that was brought on by a guy who was open carrying on the school campus because that is in the law that you can open carry. And then there's a law, a preemption law that Dick Kupke has talked about on his show quite a bit that says a local municipality or government organization, and there's a term for it, it's very important in the Supreme Court ruling, that this government entity, a local government entity, cannot override state law so that you don't get into, I drove through Waltz, Michigan and had a gun in my car and all of a sudden I'm going to prison for life, you know? Now, what the Supreme Court said was, the state Supreme Court said was, a school district is not one of those local government entities. Right. So they're like a mall or something that can tell you that you're not allowed to carry. Like it's almost like it was a private business. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're right, but that's nonsense. The Constitution is still the Constitution, and no state or city or school should be able to override the Constitution. That's all there is to it.
Well, the main thing is we've got to secure the schools and protect the students, and any way we could do that would be a good thing.
I agree. I agree completely. And the last thing, I hope Jim Jordan becomes the speaker. That'd be awesome.
That would be really different, wouldn't it? It'd be a different world. But for him to convince enough of the other representatives in Congress to make him the speaker, that would be a real trick.
Yeah, well, let's hope he has some magic tricks in his bag, because that would be awesome.
Well, that's a prayer.
Yep.
See, Gary. Well, that was nice. I always like listening from Gary. Very smart, erudite person. And I'm looking to see if Derek has somebody on the phone because I don't want to get interrupted if I start off on something and find another interesting caller call in. Nonetheless, look, we're going to talk about the Cohen tapes, and maybe we'll do that another time because I was going to play this clip from Bongino, Agent Bongino, who was on Tucker last night. And all he was doing was pointing out that you want real collusion. You want real collusion. Look at the Clintons, you know. Look at what they were doing. You know, they got the FISA warrant. They bought and paid for the whole Mueller investigation, so to speak. That's collusion.
Bongino is great.
Yes, really good. So, as I said, I was on vacation last week. Went to Connecticut to see my son get married. Stayed at a motel, okay? And I want to write you something I wrote. We stayed in Connecticut at a roadway motel. It was pretty nice. An older couple was outside using a ladder to wash windows. They were clearly of India-type Indian descent. I went inside, and the guy behind the desk was Indian also. So we talked a bit, and I asked him if I could ask him a personal question after I warned him about the way they were using the ladder, which I felt was unsafe. I had actually told him, I said, that ladder, I mean, it's nice the lady's got her feet on the bottom rung and holding it, but it's at way too great an angle. I'm really concerned. Whoa. I don't know what that was.
Go ahead.
So anyways, so I had shown some personal concern for what turned out to be his parents. And so he was appreciative of that. And so he said, yeah, I could ask him anything I want. So I mentioned that everywhere I traveled in the U.S., motels are run by people from India. And why was that? And he says, well, we're doing work Americans do not want to do. Now, where have you heard that before?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Quite often, everywhere.
Yeah. But as we talked, I says, well, I laughed, and I remembered that my parents owned a motel in Carlton, the Swan Creek Motel. And growing up, I had a hard childhood. I did not. But I had to paint and scrape and fix plumbing and just spent my summers working around the motel and watching my parents work. You know, this was not their primary income. And so my dad's always, after hours, he's gone to one of the rental properties and motel. And I swore I'd never get involved with that again. So I knew exactly what this guy was talking about. And he told me that they came to this country and bought properties that were being sold for that very reason. The kids didn't want to run them. He said that 85% of the hotel industry here is owned by Indians, and if you see a white person at the desk, there's probably an office full of people from India in the back. So I told him that where I come from, there's a huge community of Indians that have settled in Canton, Michigan. He then told me that when he saw my driver's license, he wanted to say, "Hey, neighbor." He's from Canton, Michigan, and migrated out there to do the work in Connecticut. Well, I got to tell you, I thought that was kind of a heartwarming story, you know, because here you got legal immigrants that came to this country. They took up work. It's not exactly being migrants in the farm field, you know what I mean?
Right.
But they found a niche where Americans didn't want to be doing that. They didn't want to change other people's beds. Granted, there are people who do that. Go ahead.
Well, just a point of information is back in the day when I was going to school, I was a desk clerk at a hotel chain or motel chain, and the people that cleaned the rooms were working class Americans, black and white. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what's happened, why people don't want to do those jobs anymore, or if they're just getting cheap on the pay. But
well, it could be that. It could be basically our social programs are such that some people don't have to work anymore. It's like you can't find a teenager these days who wants to get off his butt and cut your grass for $20, you know?
Bingo.
Yeah, so it might be that. But I just thought, hey, here's the American dream. It's legal immigration, and these people were willing to do it. And so hats off to them.
God bless them.
Yep. We've had waves of immigration before where there was cultural change, because large groups came over. The Irish, you know, everybody knows the Irish brought drinking with them and alcoholism.
I thought it was the Germans. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, them too. Then there was them, and then there was the Italians, and they brought papism with them, and everybody was worried about papism. And that's not so much a problem. Yeah,
there's like you say, a big Indian community in Canton, and they're great folks. And you always they love to walk in the afternoon, and you always see them walking in Canton.
And they make some great food too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So let's see, no other callers. We're running out of time. We've got You got any, Phil, or any interesting anecdotes you want to tell?
I just have one. Oh. There's a shout out to all my old classmates and alumni at the Cherry Hill High School all-class picnic going on right now till 8 p.m. at Inkster Park. So you guys show up and have some fun.
All right, well, there we go. So back to the Cohen thing in the last closing minutes, you know. So there's the last closing minutes. We're not.
Great timing.
Yeah, great timing. So once again, thanks for listening to The Drift. Thanks for calling in. And once again, visit thedailydrift.com for the news you need to know. Sorry, I jumped your line there. Read The Current. Call the advertisers. Let them know you support the paper and their advertising. And you have a blessed week, and we'll see you next week.